Hey, Depresso Expresso here with a brand new video to start 2024. With everyone healing their livers from the festive break and making New Year's resolutions they will no doubt break, I thought I'd tackle the sinister rise of what many scholars would call the undesirables. You know the kind, lazy, wants free stuff without putting in the effort, hate others who do better than them, claim to know how the economy works, and in the same breath promotes communism. Which, mind you, they have all the excuses in the world for the failures of communism, but can only highlight the issues found in capitalism. I see a pattern here. Perhaps because of their failings in life, they've trained themselves to make excuses, justifying their poor choices, and as a deflection, focus their criticism on another system, a system despite all of its flaws, which there are numerous, is still a better system and a system that these people would thrive in more than the one they champion. You might be familiar with the anti-work Reddit group with a hefty 1.6 million members, a bunch of unemployables with very little skill coming together to whine about work. A group where if they spent half their energy avoiding work and posting online and instead focused their attention on self-grooming, aiming for a goal and getting their lives in order, they'd be happy little creatures. But that group died basically overnight because the truth is the best disinfectant. And what was this truth? One of the anti-work moderators went on Fox News revealing that he, in fact, barely works anyway. This pale, lispy dog walker, probably living in his mom's basement with little in the way of responsibilities, has a life so easy, and yet the minimum he currently does is still too much for him. Here's a quick clip to get you up to speed.
Is like a good work day. How many hours is a solid work day in your ideal society?
Sure. I mean, I think as much as people want. I mean, I personally work. I have like a 25 hour work weeks, which I think is fairly good. So I would like less work hours.
And what do you do, Doreen?
I'm a dog walker.
A dog walker. Okay.
Yes.
And how?
Yeah. So
how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. I'm 30.
You're 30. Okay. And is there something you want to do besides being a dog walker? Do you aspire to do anything more than dog walking, or is that kind of your pinnacle?
I love working with dogs. If I had to do this for the rest of my life, I wouldn't be super complaining. Dogs are wonderful animals. But I would love to teach. I would love to, work with people and stuff like that.
What would you teach, Doreen?
Philosophy mostly.
Philosophy.
Just introduction to philosophy, critical thinking, reason, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I would love to take your class, Doreen. I would just be taking notes the whole time. And you know what? A professor's a very similar schedule than something that you're imagining. So I think that actually might work perfectly for you. Listen, I think this might not be the greatest idea, but who am I to judge? To each their own, they say. It's a free country.
Sure.
Not everything's free, but it is a free country. Thank you so much.
Sure.
We got to run. We got to pay the bills.
Anyway, I won't go too much into this case since it's old news, but I wanted to point out one thing very important. Simply revealing one of the people behind the group was enough to kill the movement. It wasn't simply just a regular, well-rounded person going on air and not being prepared. This person had a certain look, an undesirable look, someone you would never in a million years leave around your kids or give any responsibility to. Have you ever been around a bunch of nerds? I mean nerds, not a little nerdy, like full-blown on the spectrum nerds, the type who works part-time at Kmart in their 30s, but has a deep knowledge to the meaning of life itself. An expert on every subject, which they, of course, have to put on some medieval voice to proclaim some sort of insightful quote they will no doubt spew. And then you get them to do some easy task like make popcorn, which, of course, they will pretend to have a PhD on the history of corn making before they move on to theorizing on how to make it. Then it becomes a competition on who can theorize the most. You watch these experts awkwardly fumble this pretty straightforward task, then you get it. For all of their ideas of the world, they still can't do the thing they claim to know about. And it's the same spirit that the regular person instinctively shies away from because their BS detector starts blinking. It even happened to the Atheism Plus group. Once everyone saw one of these bedwetters merged from their swamp, instantly it wasn't cool to be associated with them. Like, check this out. in this moment. I am euphoric, not because of any phony God's blessing, but because I am enlightened by my intelligence. Oh man, that is cringe. Now, here's the thing. I suspect there is something going on, not only culturally, but biologically. I mean, you ain't going to see a gym bro spending his time away from the weights just to sit on a forum complaining about a job he hates. He has other things in mind. And if he did hate his job, he's probably going to do something magical, like, I don't know, look for a new job. Now, this is an assumption. I get it, but probably more true than false. You see, I think the role parents play is important. Shock horror, I know. There is this delicate balance between too soft and carefree and too hard and crushing. On one hand, if you create no discipline, pander to the emotion of your child, the kid will most likely not live up to their potential and enforce bad behaviors that will be a detriment in their adult lives. There's a high chance that even if their life is easy, it still will be too hard for them to contend with. On the other side, which is no better, is being crushed by the expectations of your parents. I, for one, think there is a healthy balance, and depending on the temperament of the child. If your kid is a tough son of a gun, well, you can probably be a little sterner, perhaps push that kid a little, a healthy dose of encouragement. If the brat is a sensitive little bee, well, you might want to pull the handbrake on being too forceful. But in the same breath, the last thing you want is to pander to the tyke's emotions. So you might want to instill some kind of foundation so the kid can grow from. All about balance. You see, if a kid is aggressive, you want to give them a heart, learn some compassion, and channel his energy to something productive. If the kid is too emotional, you need to give them a brain so they know the world does not revolve around them. Now, what happens if the environment around us is safer, easier, and convenient with endless entertainment? Well, perhaps humans start adapting, muscle shrinks, your metabolism shifts to a lazier state, and effectively the brain too will suffer. The world is a scary place. If you're constantly vulnerable, how are you going to cope over the smallest of challenges? What I'm saying is the environment will shape and change you, and that includes physically. The anti work, atheist plus groups, and not to mention the regular Reddit moderator, is a testament to that. They look unhealthy, which most likely affects their mood, energy levels, ultimately drives many of them to develop some kind of depressive state. And on top of that, many people around them pick up on this and most likely, whether it be conscious or unconscious, perhaps not give them the respect they think they deserve. Then resentment builds up. Mix that with constant online engagement with other creatures of the night, and you get someone driven by pure neuroticism. These experts online, when out in the real world, are no more than dorks, but they want to appear like big brain intellectuals. But if they truly were big brained, they'd be doing big brain things. And that's the thing. These undesirables have the solution to their problems. To lift their depressive state and improve their appearance, you can start by eating right, ensuring you have the right vitamins in your system, heading to the gym, and shifting their energy away from these forums and groups to learning vital skills that will benefit them greatly. Have you been around a competent handyman and the incredible service that person provides? Yeah, be more like that guy. Show it with action rather than words. Oh, and surprise, surprise, that handyman ain't complaining. But the sad thing is, this advice won't work for most. Of course, I can throw out the usual reasons like being lazy, their hatred blinds their vision, lack of motivation, or perhaps mental health, just to name a few. But one thing I haven't named, which perhaps underpins the very drive that moves people forward, is this idea called the slave and master morality. Okay, let's get philosophical. So strap into your race car gaming seat, wipe those crumbs off your My Little Pony t-shirt, and let's dive into this unique topic. So if you're unaware of Nietzsche, he is primarily known for his mustache and living in a time where everything was black and white. But when he wrote a bunch of books before having a mental breakdown over a horse he was secretly banging behind the shed, okay, I'm being silly anyway. He was an existentialist philosopher who questioned the ideas of good and evil that at the time and even to this day were controversial. In his book Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche cemented the idea that in the landscape of the human experience, there are two moral attributes: the master's morality and the slave's morality. The master creates morality, and in turn, the slave responds to the master with their own morality. So, what does this all mean, and how does this apply to the undesirables? Let's start with the tenets of master morality. Initially, with most governed systems, whether it be companies, institutions, or the government itself, typically the most powerful people rise to the top, and it is they who gets to decide what is good. The ones at the top immediately identify the good by expressing all of the qualities they possess. That is, usually strength, competence, and the ability to dominate. Nietzsche emphasizes that it is not all individualistic hedonism. With strength and competence comes the ability to be dependable and useful, and the ability to dominate also comes from the ability to protect and provide both for oneself and others. Everything has a yin and yang. From that point, it's not selflessness or altruism and not weakness that is desirable. It is instead personal excellence. This is what Nietzsche refers to as noble morality or master morality. This type of morality was a type of concept that, in some regards, was given as an aim for the higher good, which led to the most successful societies. However, it's not all balloons and lollipops. As with anything, there's always a darker side. With success comes a separation between two groups, the powerful versus the powerless. Again, the master and the slave concept. Over time, there will emerge slave morality wrapped in bitterness. Kind of like how kids rebel against their parents, slave morality will ascend out of resentment, and as a result, anything that the master morality deems as good, slave morality will consider to be bad by default. Basically, masters will value strength while slaves will value weakness as a virtue. One will value dominance while others will value submissiveness and servitude. Masters enforce great deeds that will be for good and for bad. The servant will insist on harmlessness. Where master morality's starting point is defining good out of nothing, and only then moved on to defining bad in opposition to that. The starting point of slave morality is to demonize anything that the powerful have. There is no aspiration here at all. Apart from weakness and incompetence, you see, this point is vital to understand. If one system derives its moral system from a place of strength and competence with a proven track record for success, and the other needing a pre-existing one to exist just to be oppositional out of spite, that is a problem. It's like how Elon Musk is often seen as an idiot by left-wing circles. I'm not for or against Musk. He is simply a figure within the public domain who is doing things. What is bonkers, though, is how someone who is actively pushing society away from petrol towards electricity is poo-pooed by these unemployables. If anything, they should be praising his achievements. They always go on about the environment. Well, here you go. We found someone. Oh, wait, it's by the wrong person. Yep, that's right. Rather than get behind someone who is immensely talented with a proven track record of success, they'd prefer getting behind Greta Thunberg, whose talents include shaming people and being autistic. And not one of those autistics with superpowers who can do high level math or engineer something cool or even move things with their minds. Nope. She is one of those neurotic autismos who has zero skills beside being miserable. That's slave mentality right there, if you ask me. Dismissal of competence, no matter how grand one's achievement is. Like, let's take a look at Musketeer's achievements. Yep, been programming since a kid, sold his first game at 12, has a major in business and physics, founded and co-founded a crap ton of tech companies like PayPal and SpaceX, amongst others. You can dislike the guy for whatever reason, but you can't downplay his talents and success, especially if your highest achievement is dyeing your hair blue. But here is the thing, Musk can attribute his achievements primarily to himself, but an envious person can't lay claim to said achievements. But what they can do is scream at the system to fix the issues they deem to be a problem. And if the system happens to find a solution, these crybabies can feel some sort of gratification as if they solved the problem when all they did is pass the responsibility to a more competent force. By the way, this dismissal of someone's talents is dangerous. Imagine a school teacher with that mentality. No matter how amazing some kid is or if he or she has potential, if that kid does not fall in line with that teacher's ideals, that kid is doomed. That's like inventing a sport. Naturally, the best rise to the top, who ultimately dictate the rules around the sport and growing it to a larger state. And as it grows, people will be inspired to join, basically creating culture, injecting money into the economy, and producing entertainment for all to enjoy, amongst many other positives. By the way, not saying it won't help, but some who dwell on their problems oftentimes are just simply getting off on their emotions. They feed on it. These are the same people who choose emotion over stoic principles such as self-discipline, while they hoof down antidepressants, have random panic attacks, and force people to tiptoe around their feelings. They have the foreskin to give life advice on the matter of dealing with one's trauma. Sorry, I'm choosing the bean with inspirational qualities and a resume to match over some deadbeat that complains about never having money and yet can afford a sleeve tattoo, whose great achievement in life is sucking cock. Sorry, got a little carried away there. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yes, the Nietzsche boy. He believed that our current moral systems were brought into effect by resentful revolt. The highest good is no longer defined by the powerful, but by the powerless. And in Nietzsche boy's eyes, this becomes a conundrum. Since altruism, selflessness, and helping others sound good, right? Well, according to the Nietzsche dog, he would say it was a huge problem if we make these concepts our universal morals. More specifically, the consequences of mediocrity, living a life of passivity. You can make endless promises to yourself, what deeds you will do, both good and evil, and what ends up happening. Absolutely nothing. Passiveness, emptiness. You've heard the quote, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Well, this type of mindset can lead to that. Basically, it doesn't matter if you're the evilest monster or the saintiest saint. It won't matter, as ultimately nothing will happen. And this is what Nietzsche was afraid of if society wholeheartedly threw themselves into the pit of slave morality. The two factors that drive slave morality is fear and strength. To achieve something significant, one must possess either exceptional strength, exceptional competence, or both, unless, of course, they stumbled upon their success by pure chance. This is true for the powerful who use their resources to give vision to 1,000 people like Mr. Beast has done. And on the flip side, that same power can be used by corrupt pharmaceutical companies to increase the prices of vital medicine for greedy purposes. You can't have one without the other. Batman needs the Joker and vice versa. You can't create extraordinary people without creating extraordinary monsters, and sometimes that can even come in the same package. Nietzsche once described Napoleon as a mix between monster and superior man. According to Nietzsche, once we fear power, we start working against ourselves, our societies, and the overall success of mankind. Nietzsche feared that in this type of world, the ones who choose complacency over ambition will be happy, but in the case of society, the leaps and bounds of achievement and greatness will be stifled, as they will not be able to create people with great merit. And therefore, innovation and the gifts it provides will no longer exist. In short, slave morality will make us resentful and self destructive. Basically, building anything from the perspective of complete resentment will be a complete disaster. Imagine being a kid wanting a Super Nintendo because your neighbor has one, and on your birthday, your parents bought you a Sega Master System instead because it was on special and much cheaper option for your working class parents to obtain with their income. You start to rationalize how the Master System, which at that point you never cared for anything Sega, is now magically a better console. This kind of concept will eat him up inside, as Bino the kid's heart was truly for Nintendo, but now has to contend with he may therefore downplay the qualities of Nintendo, which was once valued in his eyes, and uplift the qualities of Sega instead, which was once devalued by that same individual. By the way, nothing against Sega. I'm just highlighting an example of someone valuing one thing over another, irrespective of quality. Now replace the console with something more significant like power or achievement. Nietzsche believes this is what all people want to a lesser or greater degree, but that is also the very things condemned by slave morality. Under slave morality, they are told the fundamental part of you is wrong and evil, stopping them from reaching any sort of achievement. Instead, live a life of torment. It'll create generations of self-hating beings having their aspirations to greatness grinded and put into a coffee machine, condemning us to despair and mediocre coffee. Imagine you're working at a cafe. You work your butt off, hoping you'll get that fat bonus. During bonus time, you get the same bonus as Fred, who's this lazy teabag. You wonder why, with all that effort, you got the same as Fred. Then some other worker goes, hey, it's probably due to racism. The boss is a teabag and so is Fred. You may be convinced of that argument and never try hard again. But what happens if you didn't get a bigger bonus because your manager didn't want to appear favoring anyone? Or maybe HR told management that bonuses were low this year and to spread the cash equally. Who knows? My point is around not making assumptions, which leads to demoralization. Maybe this particular bean may not be appreciated at this one particular coffee shop, but at another, he might be seen as a rock star for his hard work. Slave morality will say to those who are struggling to achieve that they are wasting their lives and they will never get anywhere. Not only will they be demotivated and be lowered to their level, but may eventually lead to a life of frustration. And those living a mediocre life will look at others whose aspirations have not been crushed and sneer with resentment. They will look at the successful or powerful and rationalize how evil they are. And perhaps Nietzsche was somewhat right here, and something I can see influencing a certain group of people. Like, get this, let's say you're a kid, you're not that social, nor funny or interesting. Perhaps you're small or overweight. You don't offer much in the way of standing out. And so, therefore, you struggle to attract attention from others. Not only will you be a target for bullies, but forming friendships will be a challenge. And the opposite sex won't give you the time of day. A product of a lonely existence. Your life is filled with fear. You do well in exams, not because you wish to educate yourself, but the fear of failure. After all, you already face many challenges from a social perspective, but you can at least not fail from an academic perspective. Then you realize, hey, if I regurgitate things I read online, I can appear to be an intellectual. And that, ladies and gentle beans, we are getting to something. I'm not talking about people with huge brains. I'm talking about a group of people who do not have any distinct skills or talents. So they develop the need to retain information as a way to educate the uneducated, which is everyone they come across. Someone who is truly intelligent will be able to show it in a more profound way. Take a competent programmer. You ask him to do something he has never done before, and in front of you, he begins to build the system. This is because he truly understands the concepts within programming and how to implement them. That takes a certain level of intelligence to pull off. Now, take someone who doesn't code but did some course on IT or something like computer science. He may throw out some random fact, knowing your understanding is limited, like, oh, this is a Boolean. It means on or off, blah, blah. Yeah, that's cool and all, but do you know how to use it within the context of programming? Regurgitating descriptions of things is not the same as actually using the tool or the language to literally create something. This is a sign of those who can't do, teach. You see, if you live a life where no matter what you do, no one ever acknowledges you, that bitterness I've mentioned throughout the video will manifest. They will blame the world, but never look at the flaws and insecurities that hinder their progress through life. It's like listening to some camera enthusiast educate you on SLR cameras and photography. Then when you see photos he has taken, they are not remarkable. You could take a better photo using your iPhone. Oh, and this type of person will think their lack of friends is due to their high IQ. They just can't relate, man. But really, it's because they suck. Now, why does someone who's no more smarter than the average bear take the intellectual route for seeking attention? Easy. It's a lot of work to learn an instrument or to code. It takes courage to make a successful business. Everything that creates you takes grueling effort, and not to mention you will be measured by the world. But throwing random facts at a party, well, you're rarely measuring intelligence, just memory. And face it, most people aren't going to fact check you. Another reason is to feel intellectually superior to others. As we have seen with the Atheist Plus movement, that group spewed arrogance. I mean, it's not Richard Dawkins we are talking about here. Where Richard Dawkins' academic achievement is on display, his contribution to the field of science, including writing the book called The Selfish Gene, which is considered an important piece of work for biology, is a testament to his intelligence. His intellectual vigor has been proven, whether you agree with him or not. Fake intellectuals is what they are. Additionally, there is another angle the Undesirables take. As previously mentioned, the notion of morality. We all know a person who, through their moral systems, has become completely insufferable. Who will lecture you over dinner and hold everyone around them to impossible moral standards that everyone has not agreed to, nor can this particular person achieve such standards themselves? They have no interest in constructing their own ideas, but spend their days condemning people for their various sins, especially those who have more joyful lives than they do. Nietzsche contests that this moral person is not really moral at all, as he questions the fundamental motives that underpins their moral reasoning. Now, I don't believe this applies to everyone, but I do believe there are people who use morality to gain power or to get their way. For example, Apple decided to remove charging plugs from being included in the box when selling their phones. And we all know the reason for this: to save that sweet cash. So instead of being honest behind their intentions, they'll say, oh, we are doing it for the environment. Or in a heated argument, someone may use the suffering of minority groups as a moral angle to win the argument. But the issue is that the person doesn't care about said minority group, but the desire to win. That is their intent. On a side note, we see this sort of thing unravel where a company was driven to simply make money and innovation as its primary goal, is now about appearing moral while still making money as its main prerogative. Morality in this case is simply marketing. Just behind the scenes is the same beast, though far destructive, as the pillars that uphold the structure has been replaced with dishonesty. Simply, building anything from a lie will end in destruction. Now for some real talk, coffee talk. Strength and power are not bad things. They are just things that can be used for good or bad. The same way there are predators, there will be protectors. That's the story of nearly every comic book hero. And equally, for every prey that needs protecting, there are sneaky, resentful parasites that exert their will to power in dishonest, manipulative ways. The ability to do great for humanity goes hand in hand with the ability to do harm. A morality that glorifies weakness and meekness to the exclusion of self betterment and competence is doing a disservice, actively making their lives worse. We should all be suspicious of people who build their identity around being moral. You should be noble and humble with victory. Lastly, with that said, simply don't be a dork. My name is Depresso Expresso. If you like the content, please subscribe, like, and comment below. This is a new channel, and any type of support will help it grow.